Hello boys and girls, welcome to my channel. I'm the Upscale Joe PT, and for today what I have in here very disappoint me. I have in here CSGO Danger Zone. So Danger Zone, it is a new game mode. It is pretty much a battle royale mode for CSGO, just like it happens in Fortnite or PUBG, but yeah, it is much more different than the others. Because it only supports until 16 players and not 100, and of course, as expected, the map it is way smaller. There was a couple of surprises too with the game. I mean, I really like the gameplay, your buy and sell system, your buy system from CSGO regular matches. It is available, and the guns are delivered through a drone. So there are a lot of interesting concepts available on this game mode, which I find it's really neat in my opinion. I really like what they have done, but they they made the game completely free to play, which I believe might bring some issues with cheaters to the competitive gaming community, and well, this is really disappointment in that regard. But okay, this is their decision, and I believe this is to fight Fortnite popularity and PUBG. But it is a little bit sad to see that Valve needs to put the game free in order to gain popularity. Valve, it was very strong on some years ago, but now it just feels completely out of the place. Okay. More shocking than all this, it is the graphical settings. I'm using median settings, no MSAA, anisotropic set to 16, no motion blur, and obviously no VSync. Okay, and I said okay, so I'm very sorry if I hurt anyone's feelings, and I'm not mocking anyone. But more shocking than everything, than saying okay multiple times, it is this, which is not okay. It's the performance. So I decided to test the game 3 matches per setting. So maximum settings average of 63, the high settings average of 72, the median settings average of 77, the low average of 80, and the ultra low average of 88. But none of this matters, because the 1% low, the minimum frame rate you get during the matches, it was in all settings, no matter what settings you go for, it was below 60 frames per second. And this means that the game at some point was below than 60 frames per second. And I'm very, very sad to publicly announce that I can't play CSGO Danger Zone above 60 frames per second all the time. There are areas where the frame rate do drop from the 60s, and at some settings I even see 30 frames per second. And this is not the GPU fault. This is CPU fault. And you might say, okay, there is something wrong with your CPU. No, there is nothing absolutely wrong with this CPU. This CPU, it is old, its performance per core, it is weak comparing for today's standards. But you know what is even worse today? It is Source Engine. Because Valve, I'm not really sure, and probably some people will close the video from now on, but I really need to say this. Alright, I'm not really sure where to start, but probably I will start first with the CSGO theme and Source Engine, and then expanding to Valve and Steam. But despite it's the CPU fault for this game to not being rendered very good or at a good frame rate, the thing is, it is Valve's fault too. Source Engine, it was used to be a highly optimized engine. This is mostly because scenarios were small, and this is why Half-Life 2, for example, required a ton of loadings throughout the maps. Because you can't have bigger maps, or you can't have high detailed maps with a ton of stuff inside of them, because Source Engine, it is quite old. It still uses DirectX 9, which is not very efficient to the CPU. It barely scales to something more than 2 or 3 cores, so it means, which means that if you have a 6-core CPU, you can take pretty much advantage of those cores. It's what it really matters on this engine. It is a performance per core, and this is why CSGO performs much better on Intel. than on AMD. But don't get me wrong. Don't get me wrong. Danger Zone performs even bad on Intel. I have a friend with an i7 870K with overclock to 4.7, and he said to me that he was having 270 frames per second, but then he looked around and he got 130. It is still a very good value, but it shows how inconsistent the source engine it is today, because it is old. DirectX 9, it is old, it is not efficient, it barely scales, the engine barely scales throughout 2 or 3 cores, and there is there is no Umbra system, there is no cooling system. And you might ask, what the hell is that? A cooling system, it is a system that prevents the game to render what you don't see. Most of the game engines from today, like Unreal, like Unity, and many game developers use an add-on called Umbra. They pay to use Umbra, which is a system that prevents the game from rendering stuff that the player don't see, so that the CPU gets the possibility to expand its frame rate to something higher. Source engine might have something like this, but it is quite old and it's way different than it is used nowadays. And at this time you might ask, so why Valve never evolved CSGO to Source Engine 2? I believe this is related with one single thing. Valve's Source Engine 2.0 ditched AVOC physics engine. If Source Engine it is famous through something, because of something, it is its optimization on the GPU front, and because it's physics. Because Half-Life 2, it was amazing at the time because of its physics, and all the system, it was pretty much very famous because of the the physics behind Source Engine. So what happens really is that Valve needs to pay to AVOC team in order to implement, AVOC on their games. And so when Valve decided to develop Source Engine 2, they decided to create their own physics system, which is obviously much more weaker than AVOC. This is why on Dota it is not truly relevant to have a bigger physics engine, but for CSGO, physics it is everything. And it's not only that. I mean, CSGO it is a well-known game, and there is a lot of competition and tournaments. If they change physics engine, the game would behave completely differently. So they can't just move to Source Engine 2, but they could develop a battle royale separated from CSGO, and they could develop that with Source Engine 2 with their own physics engine. But that didn't happen because Valve don't care anymore, and this is what pisses me off, because this game it is not performing decently because DirectX 9, because the lack of multi-core improvements in Source Engine 1, because the fact that Valve don't want to spend money licensing AVOC to Source Engine 2.0. Essentially, it's because Valve don't care anymore at all. Valve, it's not the leader of the market. I don't care about if it's Fortnite being the leader or not. They are the leaders of pretty much the multiplayer community nowadays. And I don't even like Fortnite. I hate it. With all the best efforts, I hate Fortnite. But still, Fortnite it is ahead. And it seems really bad to see Valve going free to play, putting CSGO into free to play mode, and having this kind of battle royale mode just to try to get some players to play it, and with Fortnite or PUBG. So this really sounds desperate from Valve, and I'm not even pity, because Valve or Steam or Game have gone to something that I don't like. They are greedy nowadays. People are asking for Half-Life 3 for decades. People are asking for Left 4 Dead 3 for decades. They simply don't care. They don't develop games anymore. They develop crap like artifacts. Valve/Steam asks for 30% of the revenue of each developer. So let's pretend that you are going to develop a game. And I have been saying this for years now. You have to spend something like 10% on Unreal, because you are not going to develop your own engine unless you are really good and you have a great team, a very great talented team. So you are going to use Unreal. You have to pay a taxes to Epic's Unreal Engine. Then you sell the game on Steam, and you need to pay 30% to Steam or to Valve. That's a lot of money. Valve have been kind of greedy into the developers, into the players. They have gone greedy all over the place, and this is really disappointing. And this is the reason why many games decided to flat out from Steam and go to Origin, go to Uplay, and now recently gone to Epic Store. We have a ton of exclusives on Epic Store, and you might ask why. Because Epic Store only asks for 10% of the revenue from the developers, while Steam asks for 30%. Valve made a move, and now if your game it is really expensive, or if it makes very big revenue, it only asks to 25% or 20%. This is still a very high value, comparing even to Epic Store. But it's still, this really sounds greedy. I don't know. Valve don't do anything today. They don't develop decent games anymore. Valve, even CSGO, it is developed by Eden Path. Okay, they don't develop games anymore. Everything is dead on Valve. The only thing they have is Steam, where they make a bunch of money. And like I said, I really love Valve and Steam. And if it wasn't for them, probably PC gaming were dead. They accomplished something that was great. But it seems that nowadays, Valve lost its identity, lost its potential. Their games are not the most important games anymore. Their store, it is greedy, it is full of crap. So it's really sad to see this. And this is all that I wanted to talk about. How disappointing I am with Valve. They stopped to develop games because they make easy revenue with developers. And this is really sad. And developers decide to go out and develop their own launchers or move to Epic Store. It's sad. That's it, guys. Thank you a lot for watching.